Far-right European leaders are meeting in Budapest this Monday for an event dubbed the First Patriotic Grand Assembly, named after their group in European Parliament. Figures like France's Marine Le Pen and Italy's Matteo Salvini are rallying around Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who faces his toughest electoral challenge next month since taking power 16 years ago. To talk more about this, our International Affairs Editor Angela Diffley joins me. Hi, Angela.
Hi.
Orban then faces this tough challenge on April 12, but now there's this new row over allegations of leaking sensitive information to Russia. How is that set to impact all of this?
It's unclear how this will impact voters in Hungary. So just quick recap. Orban has now ordered a probe into what he says could be possible wiretapping. How was it that his foreign minister was being, he says, perhaps eavesdropped upon? This, of course, relates to these allegations that came out at the weekend from the Washington Post that during breaks in EU ministerial meetings, Orban's foreign minister was taking the time to give minute-by-minute updates to Sergei Lavrov, his foreign minister counterpart in Russia. That, of course, is an extremely serious allegation. In domestic politics in Hungary, Peter Mayer, who is the challenger, the sort of centre-right candidate who is at the moment just leading in the polls in Hungary, he is saying this is treason for Hungary and treason within the European Union as well. It is extremely serious. That said, European leaders are saying we always suspected this. You know, a number of leaders have come out and said, well, I'm always very careful what I say. I say the absolute minimum. I have assumed for some time that there was some sort of leaking going on, and increasingly EU business had been done in small groups of countries that were particularly interested in particular areas rather than at wider EU level, partly to get around this problem. The European Union isn't likely to do anything formal for the moment because they do not want to be seen ticking off Orban ahead of the elections. That might not do the European Union any good. So for the moment, there is a general wariness around this. They're waiting for explanations, they say, from Hungary, but the European Union not taking any formal action.
All right, well, we see these European leaders then in Brussels this Monday showing their support for Orban. What is all of this about?
Well, it's about, giving him moral support. He's as threatened as he ever has been because he has normally had a comfortable lead at this stage in any Hungarian election. So his political bedmates around Europe are there to offer support. Of course, these nationalist parties, they are mainly concerned with preserving what they consider to be a threatened European identity, the national identities of different European countries. They take strong stances on immigration. But in many ways, they also send out mixed messages. And particularly when you look at this Russia idea and Trump, Orban has made very little secret of his friendship with Vladimir Putin. He regularly either vetoes or tries to veto aid to Ukraine, not least on Friday. He didn't sign off on a loan. He has made it very clear that he thinks highly of Vladimir Putin, and he equally has a very strong relationship with Donald Trump. And if you cast your mind back to that national security document from the US back in October, they said within that document, we will try to help where we can identity politics in Europe, nationalist parties within Europe. And so it's quite clear that particularly J.D. Vance in the American administration, the United States is clear that they would like to try and help nationalist parties in Europe. You know, this is all sending out very mixed messages to potential nationalist voters in these various different countries, because by their very nature, nationalist parties reject outside intervention. And yet you have this idea where the two dominant leaders in politics, in world politics at the moment, appear to have very close relationships with a number of European nationalist leaders. In France, where Donald Trump is particularly a toxic personality, and indeed the Rassemblement National in the past had ties with Russia, Jordan Bardella and Marine Le Pen have been very careful to try to distance themselves from Russia and from Donald Trump. It is not useful in France to be too closely associated to either of those. And, you know, in a dangerous world, on the issue of defence, it's very confusing, the nationalist stance. You know, Russia is a threat to many European countries, and yet some of these national parties entertain friendships with Putin. Donald Trump has made clear his at least indifference to NATO, and yet many of these national parties, or certainly Orban, has a good relationship with Trump. And yet the European Union is not yet autonomous in terms of defence, and they are pretty contemptuous of European Union, whilst wanting to stay within it. Most of these parties now reject the idea of actually leaving the European Union. But it's quite a messy jigsaw of ideas that they're not always compatible.